Good evening. The time is 6:04 on February 17, 2022. This is the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We will be recessing into our work session to cover items for tonight's commission meeting, and then convening back into regular session at around 6:30. So with that, I'll convene to our work session. The time is 6:04.
And the Atari was obsolete by the time we got done, right?
Yeah. It got chilly out there, didn't it?
It did.
It is. It's gonna be a whole lot worse in 5 hours.
That's what I hear. 29. I had to pull all the plants back in. All right. So what do we got for tonight?
A lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff.
Are we going to debrief on the retreat last weekend? Is that on the agenda?
Oh, I did not put that on the
Okay.
agenda.
We'll do this open session. Had a good weekend meeting with the mayor and chairs and vice chairs of the other boards and commissions, and share some of the thoughts there. So. Cool.
Yeah, so we'll probably be having a meeting with us and some of the other boards maybe to kind of discuss where we're going.
It's a good session.
Yeah, it was good.
So we'll do it after we go over our cases tonight with the
Yeah, sure.
leftover time? Okay, sounds good.
All right, so Ashley, did you want to do your thing first?
Sure, you can.
Or do you want to?
Or it's on the agenda.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
That's
number
on the
3.
agenda. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to
so
roll call.
Roll call. Okay, so. All right, so Eddie, you're here.
Yes, here.
Vice Chair, Mr. Portman.
Here.
Sue Blankenship.
Present.
Cindy Bishop.
Here.
Freddie.
Here.
Ed Maurer.
Present.
And Mr. Walker.
Yay.
Okay, so the next, I'm gonna check that off. So, today's gonna be a little bit different. So we're gonna have training with Ashley. She's gonna give us some training, and then we'll have election of officers as well on the agenda today.
So it's not really training, but it's just a training overview. So I know that you all have completed your Open Meetings Act and your Public Information Act training, so I really wanted to thank you for that. This is really, it's a great opportunity because I was actually going to be here tonight, but now I'm actually the secretary for tonight. So I just wanted to say, if you guys have any questions about what we do, what I do, what your role as board members, any rules that you have about the any questions that you have about the Open Meetings Act, I'll be happy to answer those. Your board is always one of the best, so I have to say, I know you won't have any questions, but if you do have questions, please let me know.
So
this is
we
really
get the gold star.
gold
Yes.
star all the way around.
It's the leadership of the commission.
Oh, my God.
Good question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Portman, for your leadership. So, anyways, so sorry. Anything else? Anyways, I'll be here all night, so tip your waitress.
All right, so.
My winter look.
One day.
Yeah.
One day.
Yeah. I just went,
Nice,
boom.
yeah.
Yeah. No, it took me years, actually.
Okay, so if you guys wanted to go, we can go over the cases. Or do you guys want to talk about the agenda in front of us? Sorry. Discuss agenda items. Okay. All right, agenda items. So item number 8 is a replat. So there's a property on South Moore, which is south of East Sandy Lake. There used to be a house on it. It's part of the Stringfellow addition. There was 2 lots, about 0.96-ish acres. There was a house on it. It was recently demolished. Someone purchased the property, and the 2 lots they want to convert into 3 lots. So it's SF12. It meets all the requirements. in terms of the size of the lot, the setbacks and everything else. So essentially, there's nothing for you to not approve it.
So, only question I have is, those appear to be either half-acre lots or all the adjacent ones. Any comment or concern about the other adjacent lot owners about more density and we're smashing in homes in this area?
No, because if you look at some of the lots to the south, they
Right.
have them replatted
Yeah, right.
and they meet those requirements, so
Good.
I don't have any concerns with
Okay.
that. We did send out letters to within 200 feet within the original plat. I got one phone call just asking, hey, I see some guys surveying out here, what's going on? So,
But nobody complained about the density.
no.
Okay.
Interesting.
Remember,
It's very-
it was probably, you were probably on the commission and Glenn, when probably 2 or 3 lots further to the south, they did
Yeah.
the same thing, they subdivided, it's the one that's got the, kind of the.
Joint
monument.
driveway.
Yes, the joint driveway. So
Yeah.
it's akin to that, really, that's how I see it, but just wanted to make sure that we didn't hear any negative comments about it.
So interestingly enough, I see that it's zoned SF12, but they had it on the market as a commercial piece.
So in the future land use map, there was the potential for it to go to some kind of like urban neighborhood, like retail. But I think, to do that, they would have had to come back and rezone it.
Well, they were selling it as zoned commercial.
Well, it's
Just
it's
saying.
not.
That's what it's being advertised as?
It was, I don't know what they bought it under residential or commercial, but yeah, it was being offered for 1.2 million as a commercial piece of property.
Well, this is residential.
Yeah, I think the neighbors are happier
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
this proposal than they would be with.
Oh, when it was in the original,
No, 6 months ago, 8 months ago.
as 3
It
or
was on-
one lot?
It was on the market as one lot, zoned commercial. So I was surprised to see it as SF12 since they had advertised as zoning.
Yeah, we would have supported commercial or the
Okay.
neighborhood retail on this particular piece, because it is in line with the future land use plan.
Got it, okay.
Yeah, like Mary said. So,
So, but, the future land use plan shows, schematically what things could potentially be. And then you have to physically go and look and see, can you fit everything on there, what you want to do. So I think the people that bought it now, this is what they want to do, is build 3 houses on it.
Well, they're a little bit bigger lots than the one right there on Nash, almost catty corner to the southern lot. I mean, it's,
And they'll probably make more money doing it as residential lots.
Yeah, that's all in this question.
So, but they are smaller than the lots right in the back of them, so.
I don't have any concern that it's residential, but kind of the theme of commercial properties being sold for residential to get into the school district, I see a kind of continuation here. But to me, this is acceptable in this area.
yeah,
Yeah. We didn't have any concerns.
it's zoned for what they're proposing, so.
So the question I had on this, so not having gone through those other ones to the south was, okay, I looked up the Coppell Vision 2030 plan, and under the residential area, they talked about, small town feel and special place to live, and they specifically called out lot sizes. So I was concerned that this, making the lot sizes smaller is contrary with the Coppell Vision 2030.
This is actually one of the larger lot sizes that we have.
Yes.
So I don't think, the way the lots were configured before, they were SF12, but they were much larger than the minimum standards. So they're well within, even with the size that they are now are larger than what's required, so I don't have
There's
any
no
issues.
reason that we can deny it.
Right.
if
Well,
it's
that
on
one
the
will
record.
on the
Can we,
north,
because it's contrary to Coppell Vision 2030, even if it's zoned
Not
SF12?
But it's rooted in the zoning, though.
Yeah,
It's what?
It's rooted in zoning.
right,
So
which
it's,
is
it
a
would
legality.
be a land use that technically would be vested because it's zoned for single family.
It's already zoned for single family, so they can
Right.
develop it as single family.
So they can make it as small of a lot as possible
No,
No.
on SF, for SF12.
but
12,000.
SF12 is a minimum 12,000
12,000
square foot lot.
Right,
We
so
have
these
lots
are
that
gonna
are-
become 12,000 square foot lots, is what you're saying.
Right.
So the vision.
So I can't vote no.
No, you can. You
You
vote
said
your,
you
you
can.
vote your conscience, but,
You can
but,
vote your conscience,
but-
but they can sue us if we turn them down.
yeah, the vision is the vision of where we want to go, but the zoning is what controls the land. And so if they meet
Right.
the zoning, we have no choice but to give it approval.
Yeah, really, a plat is ministerial in nature. If they meet the requirements of plating of the subdivision ordinance,
Mhm.
then kind of rubber stamp it. But because it's a residential replat, it does require a public hearing. So that's why they're having a public hearing.
That's not to say though, if that had gone commercial, and it would
we
probably
could have
have
a
been PD
discussion.
or something, then we would have been asking questions like traffic implications and whatever, all those kinds of things.
Okay, okay.
And they're probably not going to be too terribly small. I mean, they're probably 16, 17,000.
Yeah, I'm
It's kind of like
surprised
this,
that,
right?
I'm surprised they didn't get any comments from the neighbors.
Probably like, this is the lot I was referring to earlier. This is just down the street where it was 2 lots and they basically have a joint lot there. So it'll be,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The lots, it's a big lot.
It's bigger than my
Yeah.
lot.
Most lots are probably closer to
Same here.
7,000 or 8,000.
Yeah.
Accessory building in the
how old
back.
that stone house was that was there that they demolished?
Oh, what?
That stone house that was
It's been there
there?
a long time.
It wasn't really a stone house, it was a double wide with a stone facing on it.
No way.
Y'all didn't look at pictures? It's been Zillow forever.
No, it looked like just an old stone.
Yeah, when
They
you looked
just
at-
fixed it up.
Yeah, when you looked at it, when, on the interior, you could tell that it had the, the mobile home look.
Wow.
And they had just put additions onto it.
Yeah,
It was
Oh my gosh.
hodgepodge. It
Wow.
yeah.
looked cool from the outside,
That
but
far north lot on the corner, I mean, that's now residential, right? Because it used to be a dog boarding facility.
No, that's the
no,
Coppell
there's
Realty.
a realty and a threading place.
Mhm.
Right, the two facing Sandy Lake are actually commercial.
Oh, is that where the
I
Nationwide
think-
is?
I think that's Harps
Yeah.
you're thinking of.
Oh, you're right.
And it's a good boutique office, good look. When I first saw the case, I had called Mary, and I was freaking out. I was thinking it was a lot over there at
More.
Moore in Sandy Lake, right across from
Or
St. Anne. I was like,
Samuel. Samuel.
oh, Samuel. I was
Yeah.
like, what are we doing? What? And so I called her up, and then I realized, oh, wrong location.
What would we do for the St. Anne Carnival parking?
That's what I'm saying.
Shut down the whole thing.
Yeah, that's one of the few areas along Sandy Lake that has a big open area of raw land. Sooner or later, somebody's gonna pay to build on it.
Well,
Yeah.
Unless the
church
Catholic
owns it.
Church owns it.
They own it, I thought.
Yeah, I think they do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they may very well sell it and make a big profit.
There's 3 retail pad sites out in front of Sandy Lake and MacArthur in front of the school, the academy.
Mm-hmm.
There's commercial pad sites out there.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right.
Okay, so,
Sorry.
item number 9, we good with 8?
Sure.
We digress,
Cindy,
Alright,
you
and then-
Cindy, you okay, Cindy?
I guess.
It's helpful.
Yeah. Number 9 is the TRK. They're just proposing to replace their previously approved monument sign with a changeable letter sign. They have increased it in height by 8 inches, in width by from 6 foot to 8 foot, and 8 foot towards the top, and then they've got a base that they're putting it on that's 9 foot wide. We looked at it for visibility concerns. There isn't any from Trinity Shores, and there isn't any from entering and exiting traffic. So it should be a pretty cut and dry case. It is, we did take that out of the seasonal business component of the monument sign revisions of the other case that you guys are gonna hear this evening. But Jeff Arnell, Aaron Duncan, they'll be here tonight if you have any questions about anything related to this case. So, go ahead.
Is it going in, like, in front of where their detail E, the wall-mounted sign is now, or?
It's the other side of the driveway,
Yeah, it's the
like under
west,
the trees.
the west side. And,
Okay.
and it's only about a foot back from the property line, but we did look at it for visibility, and it was previously approved, so that location, had already been established. So we sent out 24 notices to surrounding property owners within 200 feet, and then 49 within 800 feet. I did receive one phone call from one of the neighbors just saying, what's he doing now? And no written comments in favor or opposition. Any other questions on that case?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Since we're opening this PD back up, and this is a PD request,
Mhm.
and it's a variance to our ordinance, can we restrict, like, no cuss words and no, you know what I mean?
No.
Can we restrict what can go on the changeable letter?
Not the content.
No?
That's a first of them.
Yes, so I did talk to our attorney about that.
I'm just asking a question.
And so he said the answer to that question is we can't restrict content. We can't regulate content.
Got it,
And
so they can put all kinds of, whatever on
Well,
there?
so if they're obscenities, you can have them take that down. I don't think that's if they're obscene things. You can have them taken down.
Yeah, but how do you determine what's obscene and what's not?
Yeah,
Could it be a political sign? Can it be,
yeah, and that's questions that you really should ask the applicant, because city cannot regulate content, and so, that's why we brought it up last time, I wanted you guys to have that discussion, so.
even as part of a PD, we can't just restrict it to 2 words, open, closed?
We cannot.
So I guess on the flip side of that question, how about like vandalism? If people do go and switch the letters around, is there?
Well, so
how do
that
we
would be a
prevent
police
that?
matter.
But can we stipulate something like, I don't know enough about these signs, but can't you lock those letters in place or something like that? 'Cause
You can make them, make it key and lock, for sure, because that's the design of the sign.
okay, I didn't know.
So yeah, that's a really good idea if you're concerned about someone breaking in and
Because kids will be kids.
rearranging the letters.
Eddie, I know what you're thinking.
And they'll
Speak from
probably have
experience.
a lock and key.
Well, but there's 2 monument signs here. Only one is a changeable letter sign.
Well, so the one that's on there is the one that was previously approved.
The detail A monument sign.
Yeah, detail A was the one that's previously approved, and this is the other one that's taking the place of that one.
So they're gonna pull it down?
It's not out there.
It's not out
Oh,
there,
okay.
yeah.
So it was previously approved, but never constructed.
So I guess over time, he's just concluded that he would like to have the changeable letters so he can tell people when he's open or not.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it makes a lot of sense from, what he's getting now is traffic stopping at his gate. He lives there, so he doesn't want the traffic stopping there and checking in. If he's got opening March 25th, spring break, then, he's not gonna have the traffic that'll stop and,
And that's one
or
of the-
drive their headlights in the door.
And that's one of the big arguments why we don't need to try and regulate the content of the sign.
What will will it be a masonry?
Right, there's a masonry base, and then on top, I think it might have some plastic, and then plastic changeable letters, but it will be externally
Big
illuminated.
picture right there.
So it won't be shining from the inside out.
Sorry.
Any other questions on that one? Okay,
Oh, wait, just on the, I was just confused, on that signage plan PDF, so it lists like detail A, detail B, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. Are we just looking at, we're just considering one of those, or? I
well,
wasn't-
so what was previously approved was detail A,
Mhm.
and what they're
This one doesn't say
proposing
that.
is the detail that shows the monument with changeable letters
Okay, so
That's
not, so
gonna
not this
replace it.
detail C and detail E and all that.
That was previously
Yeah, that's
approved.
what I thought, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And
So
those other
that's-
signs are in place, I think.
I thought so too,
And
I
the-
was confused.
Right.
Eddie just brought up the picture that you show is backlit, is the one he's going to use backlit?
No, so he's gonna have it exterior illuminated.
Okay.
Right. So that was my first comment. I saw that, I was like, and then they noted exterior illumination on their plans.
Do we need to clarify on the approval that it's not backlit in any way, or that's already covered?
It'll be covered in the ordinance, I'll make sure. Because I believe it is on their plans, and I've got an email from them saying it was externally illuminated.
But
Any other
doesn't
questions?
the ordinance that we're looking at next have a section that says there's no backlit signs?
Right, yeah, it says indirectly illuminated, and so there are instances where we do allow the back illumination, but it's got to have a opaque face and just kind of shine upward, so it's not like in your face. So
Okay.
this will not be internally illuminated, this will be externally illuminated. So I made sure I brought that up with them, because that was one of the details that we could regulate, right? Okay, any other questions on that one? The next case is the changeable letters for schools, allowing schools to have changeable letters, and then the pylon sign amendments. So we pretty much discussed the school changeable letter thing. Those will be required to be externally illuminated going forward. I'm not sure what they are now. I think the majority are externally illuminated. And then any questions on the monument sign section, changeable letters? Okay, so pylon sign section, we added a lot. Yeah, and you guys had a good discussion in December. It was very valuable. I knew kind of the mindset to go back and make the changes, and then I ran them by the city attorney, and he edited some to make legal sense. So we put together a comparison of the surrounding cities that have pylon sign regulations, and we picked the best out of each of those cities and put them in ours. So hopefully we'll have a very attractive city when you're driving through on the highways. It's not going to be a big in-your-face kind of pylon sign. We gave examples of suitable pylon signs, and so because we're requiring these to be part of a conceptual plan development, we will get to put our little stamp on it and make sure that they look appropriate. So I'm going to go through the various locations that are right now conceptual PDs with the base zoning highway commercial that will allow for this. And so they're the larger sites in Coppell that either are developed or will be developed. So highway commercial is required as base zoning. Conceptual plan development is another requirement. And then we set up minimum and maximum setbacks. So minimum setbacks from the right-of-way, and then maximum setbacks from the right-of-way, as well as requiring them to be spaced out from the residential property. So if they are within 300 feet from a residentially zoned property, then it's going to be required that they turn off their lights at night from 11 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the morning. Visibility study be performed so that we can see if they are directly visible from any of the residences. And so I think that'll cover us in kind of where we were getting at with the incompatibility with some of the residential properties. Having it be required to be a plan development, the straight site plans can't have these without coming back and going through the process. So I think that's really important.
That's a
Because
big improvement.
yeah, I think so too. Let's see here. That really covers the majority of the changes. And so glare and lighting. So we've already got glare and lighting standards within our zoning ordinance that requires no more than 0.25 foot candles at the property line. So I incorporated in this just to give the sign company some guidance. we've had a lot of, I guess, businesses change out their lighting fixtures from the current halogen to the LEDs. LEDs have a different sort of light, and so they're white, they're more bright, and they need to be shielded a little bit better from the residential. So I included that in there so we could just make sure from the get-go that they're going to be shielded from the residential. So, any questions on pylon signs?
I just had one question on the
Yes, sir.
visibility. So when you say visibility from a residence, is that the sign itself? It's not the structure, right? Is that?
Well, so it would be the structure,
Okay.
right? So we don't want it visible, and if it is going to be visible, we'll have them shield it with maybe a evergreen
Okay.
landscaping, or we can have them, put it, in front of their building, as opposed to this area where you can see through.
Okay,
right?
makes sense.
Just, we'll look at the view corridors and really make sure it makes sense.
Thank you.
And then, with regards to registered trademarks, as long as it's a registered trademark and not any kind of offensive logo, how do we control that part?
Only offensive logos. No, you're right, yeah. So if it is a registered trademark, we will permit it, but we do require that the letters be a minimum 12 inches and clear space around it be 8 inches. So it'll fit in.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
And so we'll have the opportunity to look at it. And if, say, it's a current PD, the Director of Community Development does have the right to sign off on it administratively, minor changes to the PD. We'll have the right to look at it, make sure it makes sense, make sure it's compatible with something we envision for the area. If it doesn't, we'll have them come through the process so that you guys can tweak it.
Okay. Are the monument signs on the Duke Leslie track, the corner there, Beltline 635, are these new standards, does it allow for a bigger sign, monument sign, than what's out there, or about the same?
It's about the same. What's out there was actually what was approved as part of their PD is included as an example, because
Okay.
that's a good example.
Okay.
But what we administratively changed, it kind of was a downgrade from what they were approved with. And so I've included the good version as the example. But yeah, that's the size that we're looking for, or that we would allow.
Okay.
About 40 by 20.
And Matt, do you know, with respect to the highway commercial zoning district, how many of these could be possibly put in?
Yeah, well, so I've got details of each of the intersections that are conceptual PDs right
Okay.
now, and so I'm just offhand, maybe 6 or 7.
Yeah, okay, I didn't, so
Yeah.
it's, by limiting it that way, there's only so many of them running.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
What about like the Cypress Waters, the potential future TOD and mixed use and things over there? That's Dallas, right?
Yeah, so they would follow Dallas's regulations.
Can't change that one.
I have a question. So on the, may not be illuminated for the pylons between 11 PM and 7 AM. And I didn't see such a time restriction in that chart that showed what other cities are doing. Do you know if they're doing that?
Yeah, I took that from one of the cities in the chart. So I didn't just make that up, but I forget which city it was.
Because it just seems like, we have other protections to shield the light from residences. So I was just worried, like it's say, you're probably not gonna have a pylon sign that includes a bakery, but a bakery might be open at 5, so it's not lit up yet until 7.
Right.
It seemed like overkill to me in addition to all the other things. It can't be lit up between 11 and 7. I just wondered if anybody else had any thoughts.
Well, so the premise behind that was that is restricted to those that are within
Close,
300
right.
feet
And do we
from
have any?
residential.
Or you'll probably show that on that slide with the
Well,
location.
there are some properties that are within 300 feet, especially the ones that are to the west of the Roses
Yeah.
and along that stretch, those properties those are not conceptual PDs. So those will come through the process to get you.
If they so choose.
Right.
So it may not apply anyway.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys will get to look at it
Yeah.
and, yeah, approve or deny.
And when you talk about a visibility study, is that a term of art? Is that, I mean, does everyone know what that entails?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so what we would do is have them show a view corridor from the residential properties outward, and if this sign shows up anywhere in that, then it would be prohibited.
Okay.
Yeah, visibility study, yeah.
It's a thing.
It's a thing? Okay, good.
And I guess visibility study could also relate to site triangle.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions on that one?
It's 6:35.
I think we're ready.
There you go.
Anything else?
Um,
Election of chair,
Election.
vice chair?
Oh, all right.
Election of officers.
You guys want to talk amongst yourselves before we get out there and figure out who you're going to vote for?
I will volunteer for chair, if you guys will do it. Okay.
Somebody else want the position, stick your hand up. I'll do it for another 2 years.
I think I'm good with that.
Happy with that? So then, real quickly, the breakfast that we had with the mayor last week, or last Saturday, covered things. There was some procedural stuff that he reviewed: code of conduct, social media, training reminder. Social media, there's going to be some new guidelines that are going to be coming out sometime soon. You know, we're an extension of the city. We represent the city. We kind of need to mind our P's and Q's out there for that. Will we get to see the language before that gets decided upon by council? Not that we're the deciding thing, but will we get a preview of it or no?
Probably not.
Unfortunately,
Okay.
probably not. My preview would probably be once we post the agenda and then it gets approved by council on Tuesday.
Then there was a briefing by the various boards, the SMART board, the future oriented board, the parks, the
Board of Adjustment.
Board of Adjustment.
What else was there?
Just activities that are ongoing. There were some recent recommendations by the SMART board that they presented to council, and some talking about accessory buildings and things like that. I asked that we get a briefing on that because that kind of stuff has an implication on what we will see, but more importantly, how that gets codified, and so that we just are we're in tune with what's going on and what some of the thinking is. And so, any timing on when we might receive that presentation?
We're going to have a joint meeting with Ford, P&Z, and Smart City Board.
Yeah, we talked about that. Okay, sometime fairly soon, or?
We can start talking calendars.
Yeah.
Okay. I just feel that it's important that we are at least hearing it live from what they're thinking, because ultimately we will be administering that once it's codified, so.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We'll come up with ideas, we'll make policy, and we'll implement it.
I asked the question about what do we see, key issues coming down the pipe, but I can't remember what Wes or Brianna said on key issues that we'll be seeing, other than some of the development activity. I didn't really capture anything that was mind-blowing, like, oh crap, what's happening?
Yeah, I think once we all meet, then it'll kind of,
Okay.
we'll all get a better idea.
Yeah, I think the west side, one he was talking about,
Oh, yeah.
maybe having to repurpose some of those warehouses.
Based on the outcome of the lawsuit, the 3.44, the tax thing, if we're on the losing end, that maybe there'll be some rethinking about all the warehousing. What could that possibly be, maybe, in light of all the air traffic and the noise and sound coming through there, so that was kind of a key thing there. No timeline on decision. I mean, I think it was September was the initial targeted, but I think that got moved back, or I can't remember the dates that they were going out.
Yeah, I can't remember the dates either.
September is when the lawsuit will start, or when the trial will start.
Right, it was earlier, but then it got pushed to, I think,
Yes.
September.
Yes.
Okay.
And if it's the first postponement, there may be many more.
Well, I think it's probably like the second or third by this point.
Yeah.
Couple of key things that Smart City Board, I know we're running out of time, or we're past time. The Smart City Board, they're looking at,
Village concept?
no, well, that's Ford, right? So Ford looking at village concept. That's a network between, you know, the seniors and,
Everybody else.
yeah, getting, I don't know, services. But then Smart City was looking at energy, was it lead certifications for city facilities. They didn't specify if it was platinum or gold or silver or whatnot, but they said, you know, they wanted us to start looking at getting those buildings certified, green building standards.
Yeah. I mean, the Coppell Senior Center, I think, already
Right.
is
Yeah.
lead something, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Platinum's ridiculously overpriced for what you get.
Right.
Parks Board's looking at doing an update to the Master Parks Plan next year or so, looking at triggering an RFQ, then possibly a comprehensive plan and zoning update, year or two away or something.
Absolutely.
So that would be to implement from vision to the plan. So it would be a little more concrete on.
Yeah, we're actually on Vision 2040 now.
I know, I saw that.
Yeah.
So quick question, in regards to solar panels on homes, who is, when's,
Those are allowed.
they're allowed, okay?
The city cannot restrict.
Okay.
Yeah. We issue solar panels all the time.
Yeah,
Yep.
you do have to pull it.
Okay, anyone need a break before we get out there, or stay into it?
I'm okay.
Okay, all right, time 6:41. Okay. All righty. The time is 6:43, and we're now reconvening into general session. Item 5 on the agenda is citizens' appearance. Any person wishing to speak on a matter other than an item scheduled for a public hearing on the agenda must sign and register. List their address provided by the city secretary on the table that was in the back. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes to discuss any relative or pertinent issues to the commission. So if there's anybody that wishes to speak on any item other than on the agenda, please sign up.
seeing anybody? Okay. Okay. Mary, did we receive any comments from any citizens regarding any of our cases or anything? Oh, okay.
I'm one of the citizens. I didn't get a chance to, but I have comments. That's allowed now.
Is it with regards to one of the cases we're hearing tonight? Oh, definitely, within the public hearing. You bet. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to the next item. Item 6 on the agenda is the approval of our December 16th meeting minutes. Any comments by the commission, or is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that the minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission of December 16, 2021 be approved as written by the secretary.
Okay, very good. We have a motion by Vice Chair Portman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Blankenship. Ashley, would you call the roll, please?
If you'll raise your hand if you wish to approve the minutes. Walker, Bishop, Mauer, Portman, Guerra, Blankenship, all approved, none opposed. The motion carries.
Very good. Thank you, Ashley. Item 7 on the agenda is election of officers. These are the positions for chair and vice chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Since we didn't meet in January, it's one of our requirements of our commission. Is there a motion by the commission we'll start with chair?
I'll make a motion. I move to recommend Edmund Haas for chair.
Okay, we have a motion for Mr. Haas as chair. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Portman. Ashley, would you call the roll, please, on that?
Sure. All in favor? Walker, Bishop, Mauer, Haas, Portman, Guerra, Blankenship in favor, none opposed. Motion carries.
Okay, now for the more important role of vice chair. Do we have a motion by the commission for a vice chair?
I'll make a motion for Glenn Portman as vice chair.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Guerra for Glenn Portman as vice chair. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Blankenship. Ashley, would you call the roll, please?
All in favor? Walker, Bishop, Mauer, Haas, Portman, Guerra, Blankenship in favor, none opposed. Motion carries.
Okay, we got the formalities out of the way. Now the good stuff. Public hearing. Item 8 on the agenda is to consider approval of the Stringfellow addition, lots 2A, 2B, and 3A, Block A, that being a replat of lots 2 and 3, Block A, to create a total of 3 residential lots and associated easements on 0.936 acres of land located on the southwest quadrant of Sandy Lake Road and South Moore Road at the request of Atwell's Home Investors and Renovating Texas, being represented by Burns Surveying. Miss Mary Perone Boswell, if you have the staff presentation.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. This is the first public hearing this evening. It's for a replat of the Stringfellow addition located in the southwest quadrant of Moore and Sandy Lake. So this property is currently lots 2 and 3, Block A of the Stringfellow addition. It's a residential subdivision that was filed in 1961. There was one residence on the property, which has since been demolished. This is a simple residential replat request. The property was originally platted into 2 lots. It's being requested to be replatted into 3 lots, which meet the single-family 12 zoning requirements. So each lot is approximately 90 by 150 and backs up to other single-family residential lots. We did send out notices within 200 feet of the original subdivision. There was 9 notices sent out, and we received no written responses in return. So staff is recommending approval of Stringfellow addition lots 2A, 2B, and 3A, Block A. Replat subject to the following conditions. Additional comments may be generated upon detailed engineering permit reviews. A tree removal permit will be required prior to the removal of any trees, and tree mitigation fees will be calculated and due at that time. And number 3, that park fees in the amount of $1,285 are due prior to filing the plat. That is the end of my presentation. I believe the applicant is here as well.
Thank you, Mary. Any questions of staff by the commission? I do have one, Mary. So the subdivision of this lot to 3, it's generally similar in nature to a lot, 2 or 3 lots further to the south that previously was one large one, and they broke it into 2 where there's the joined.
Correct. So this isn't the first lot that's been replat into, I'd say a smaller, but it's still a large lot.
Right.
To more configure with the SF12 regulations.
And density-wise, there's no concern from staff on that?
No, sir.
Okay. Any other questions by the commission? Sue?
Mary, I did notice that typically we send out an 800-foot notice also. Was there one sent out?
So this is not a zoning change. So usually we send out the 800 with the zoning change.
Okay.
This is just a residential replat.
Okay.
And so state requirements is only for 200 feet within the original plat of subdivision.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions of staff by the commission? Okay. Is the applicant here to present the case? Come on up. If we could get your name and address for the record.
My name is Wes Atwood, 14 years roughly, Coppell resident. Great to see some faces that we recognize in here today. I do have a jump drive if it's needed, just to kind of show, I didn't know what we were going to show here today, but show this. And I don't know if you guys care what we plan to build there, but we plan to make Coppell beautiful with what we're planning to build there. So if you're interested in seeing that, if it's necessary for this meeting, I have a thumb drive I can plug in here. If not, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
So some general imagery of the kinds of things you're thinking about doing? Sure. I mean, yeah, Matt, can you help? That might help.
Sure. It's the one that's titled City Council Meeting.
I didn't get your address for the record.
My address is 603 Alder Court.
Okay, very good.
I live on
Thank
the
you.
west side.
Thank you. While Matt's loading that up, the staff comments, are there any concerns with regards to their comments
Excuse me.
by you as the applicant?
I do have
Yeah,
comments.
we'll get, ma'am, we'll get to the public hearing in a minute. This is just
The
this is
one
the
that's
applicant's
titled
presentation.
117 Southmore, that's the one. Very good. So you guys clearly know why we're here today, and you know where the property is located. If you want to go down to slide 6, it's the first of 3 slides. It gives a rendering of what we will plan to build in this area. So we want to do, each of the homes will be roughly 4,600 to 4,900 square feet. They're 5 beds, 5 baths, 3-car garage. So it's going to be very beautiful, and it's going to take away from Coppell. Actually, I think we've already taken away from Coppell, which was an eyesore in the area. And I think a lot of the residents, when they saw the crane there tearing that thing down, came over and greeted us and thanked us, and we're really excited to see what was going to be coming. So that's the first rendering. There's a second rendering there, and then a third rendering.
Is that the general color scheme you're thinking of?
The color scheme may change a little bit, but certainly more of a white and black color scheme for the first one that you saw. Pretty darn close to the color scheme for the second one. And this one could change a little bit depending on the ultimate exterior material that we use.
Okay. Very good. Are you in agreement with the conditions as presented by staff?
I am.
Okay. Any questions of the commission, of the applicant? Okay. Seeing none, we'll let you sit down for now. We may call you back.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing, and we have someone here to make some comments here. We'd like for you to come up, please. Yep, we'll need your name and address for the record, please.
Yuri Beltran.
Wait till you get up to the microphone. Sorry about that.
Yuri Beltran.
And your address?
My address is 108 Nash, which is right behind what they're planning
Okay.
on doing. I don't oppose to the building of homes. I'm opposed to the replatting. In my mind, they should keep the 2 lots to keep the consistency of the properties that are right behind them, or will continue to be behind these properties that are trying to build. And I'm concerned for the lack of privacy I'm going to have with these two-story homes. My house is a one-story. And so quality of life will be definitely different with 3 two-story homes right behind us. And so those are my concerns I have. I wrote here, and I know I didn't get a chance to do this with time, but honestly, that's my concern. So if they could do something about keeping things private, I don't know, growing trees, something, so that we don't have people looking into our yard, because they will literally be looking down into our yard,
Okay,
and that's my concern.
okay. And how long have you been in?
2008.
Okay, very good.
I moved to Chicago for the purposes of having quality of life, from Chicago to have quality of life, and Coppell is just that, and I just don't want to move if this happens.
I had mentioned on Moore, further to the south, there was a lot that we went through a similar request where it was broken into 2.
Yeah.
It'd be generally that kind of density, which is generally consistent with what we're seeing. It meets the zoning requirements that we have currently in place.
Except that for those properties, I have 2 stories home. My house and Mike's next to me are just 1 stories.
Okay.
So
Okay. Very good. Anything else?
that's it.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Is there anybody who'd like to speak for or against the proposed application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Mary, would you have any comments regarding the view shed from proposed lot to the existing lots there?
So the SF-12 does allow for, a 2-story home. I would say that we would talk with the developer and trying to provide some additional privacy by planting RU. Yeah, sure.
So we're well aware of the tree requirements in the city of Coppell, and we actually propose that for every caliper inch of tree that we have to remove to do the builds here, that we would like to add that many caliper inches back. And we're sensitive to your concern for sure. So I think on one of the drawings that we gave you, we showed where we would like to add additional trees in the backyard. And then of course there is I think an 8-foot privacy fence in the backyard, which seems to be kind of standard in Coppell. And there's also an elevation difference, if I remember correctly, of about 3 to 4 feet that fence stands on top of. So there's significant privacy in place today. Of course, we want to be good neighbors because there's a good chance that we can run into our neighbors at J. Macklin's or wherever else we might be in town, so we'd be sensitive to that. We want to take care of Coppell, we want to take care of our neighbors, and we want people to be proud of ultimately what we put there.
So the additional calipers, are you thinking that planting is like along the back property line to help create a soft barrier with trees?
Yep.
An overstory type tree, or?
So we'd like to plant probably something similar to what is already existing on the property. And I think we put forward a proposal that for every caliper inch that we take down and that will be subsequently charged for, we would love to offset that charge by planting new trees there in the back.
What's staff's response on that? Does that seem acceptable to staff?
Right, so we'll be working with them in terms of the tree mitigation and what they're taking down and putting back.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am. I've already closed the public hearing. But I would encourage you to visit with staff on other concern. Okay. Thank you very much for the response there. I know we ran into this issue many moons ago in was it the Peninsulas? There was a request to put a second story on one of the homes, and the concern was a second story into the single-story homes there along, I think it was Phillips Drive. And so I think ultimately we voted against that, or that didn't pass from the commission. But this issue is it's not new to us. We've seen it before. I like what I'm hearing from the applicant, though, about providing additional trees to help screen that. I don't know the distance between proposed home versus your existing and what that'll be, but perhaps working through staff, maybe there's a solution there. But I think the additional caliper inches on the tree, maybe that'll help in the timing of the growth of the trees to help provide that screen. But would encourage you to visit with staff, get any follow-on questions you might have. Any discussion by the commission on this one? Okay. Is there a motion by the commission?
I actually have one quick question.
Go ahead, Ed.
Do we have any idea of, to your point, where the house will be situated on each of the, or houses will be situated on each of the lots?
So there are minimum setback requirements, so it's 30 feet from the front, a minimum 20 feet from the back, and then a 10% on the side yard of whatever that lot width is. So I believe it's 9 feet from the sides. So that's their maximum footprint that they could have. Now, until they actually turn in plans, I'm not, I don't know where the house will sit on that lot. But those are the minimum requirements.
Okay, that's helpful, because it seems like it would be, looking at the aerial, it seems like it's a pretty good distance from where the back of the new property would be and where the existing homes are. It's hard to tell, but I think with some, it looks like there's some trees there now with some screening that's you certainly can achieve, some privacy. Looks from this vantage point.
I would ask the applicant to come back here. As you work with staff on this, I know with regards to windows and things, obviously you need lighting and things, but maybe there's a way to find a happy medium to help on that from that perspective.
Yeah, I'm sensitive to that. Would love to work with you guys on that. Okay. Would also like to keep in mind, I'm not sure which house we're talking about here, but the houses on Nash, of course, some of them are one story, some of them are very significant monolith type 2 stories. So I'm thinking that I don't know if they had to have approval to build a 2-story there, but of course there had to have been some concern about the same thing some time back. So we're sensitive to that. We want to definitely work with the city to.
Thank you very much. Yep. This does meet the zoning requirements, so it would be a very tough decision to deny this application as it meets the requirements of zoning. So, all right. Any final discussion by the commission on this? Is there a motion by the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will move that the Stringfield addition lots 2A, 2B, and 3A, Block A replat, and being a replat of lots 2 and 3, Block A, be approved as submitted, subject to the staff conditions.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Portman. Is there a second?
I second.
Second, Commissioner Guerra. Ashley, would you call the roll, please?
All in favor? Walker, Mauer, Haas, Portman, Guerra, Blankenship. Opposed? Bishop. The motion carries.
Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments, ma'am, and thank you to the applicant for working with staff on this. Hopefully there's a win-win here in the end that everyone's happy, so thank you. All righty, item 9, a public hearing to consider approval of PD-260R4-R Trinity River Kayak, a zoning change request from Plan Development number 260, revision number 3 retail, to Plan Development 260, revision number 4 retail, to revise the plan development to allow for an increase in the height/size and to allow for changeable letters on a proposed monument sign previously approved on 1.49 acres of property located at 1601 East Sandy Lake Road at the request of Aaron Duncan on behalf of Jeff Varnell of Varnell Holdings. We have a staff presentation by Matt Steer. Matt?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. This is item number 9 this evening. It is a public hearing. Property's been zoned retail for over 25 years and formerly occupied by a bait shop and a residence. And then in 2013, the property owner was granted a rezoning to allow a convenience store in addition to canoe, kayak, paddleboard storage, and rentals and sales. So in 2016, it was again rezoned to amend the allowed uses and the signage. This particular signage was approved at that time. And in 2019, there was a request to amend the site plan yet again to allow for canopy and a canopy and storage building, an enclosed metal storage container, and to use the existing building as a live-work use. And then in 2020, most recently, a request to demolish the garage structure and build a 2,500 square foot new structure that included a garage, additional enclosed storage, and covered pavilion was approved. So this request is to replace a previously approved monument sign, as mentioned, approved in 2016, with one that has changeable letters. So TRK is very unique in comparison to the other businesses in Coppell. It's considered a live-work use consisting of the kayak business and a residence. So it's not open year-round. The applicant would like to advertise when they are opened and closed during certain periods of the year and when they have events for Boy and Girl Scout troops and other organizations. The changeable letter sign will help communicate to passersby when they are opened and closed for the season and prevent cars from stopping at the front gate to see if they are indeed open for business. So the size of the proposed sign is slightly increased in height. Previously it was approved at 5 feet. They've increased the height to 5 feet 8 inches, and they've slightly increased the width from 6 feet to 8 feet at the top portion of the sign, and then it's going to sit on a 9-foot base. Staff can support the increase in height to allow for better visibility. The location of the sign was re-examined and studied, and we determined it would not block the visibility from the Trinity Shores subdivision, nor would it block the visibility from anyone entering or exiting the site. It would be externally illuminated. We sent out notices to surrounding property owners within 200 feet, and we received no written in favor or opposition, and then 49 within 800 feet as a courtesy, and we received no response either in favor or opposition. Staff is recommending approval of the PD amendment with no outstanding conditions. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Matt. Any questions of staff by the commission? I know that when we heard this last time, there was some concern about precedent with other developments within the community, so I think this is an appropriate approach, particularly as it relates to this application. So would the applicant like to make a presentation? No presentation?
No, so here are questions if you don't have any.
Okay. Are there any questions of the applicant by the commission?
I just had one question. I know I brought this up in the working session, but just to prevent any vandalism or changing of words, can you explain how that's going to be prevented?
So before you start your answer, name and address for the record.
Is this thing already on? Can you hear me now? Aaron Duncan with Mesa Design Group, 2001 Lamar Street, Dallas, Texas. So with changeable letters, always there's the ability for them to be changed, but the unique thing here is you have somebody living 20 feet away. So there's always going to be eyes on it. So there's always that ability for, where you have a business that might be changed and not noticing. Literally, it's the only entrance in and out, so there will be eyes on it every morning, night, and afternoon. So I think that's the best opportunity to make sure that it doesn't change for the wrong reason.
On screen, there's an image that shows a sign that could be potentially backlit. Just to confirm, the sign will not be backlit?
No, it'll be externally lit.
Okay. What are the kinds of things you'll have on the sign?
Well, so if you recall, they're just adding a pavilion out there, and so the pavilion's near completion. So there's a lot of opportunities for advertising events, for he's done a lot of input from like Boy Scouts to rent it for meetings, et cetera. So it'd be opportunity to advertise events, but also with it being seasonal, the flooding is definitely a cause where people might think it's open because it hasn't rained in a long time, but the flooding kind of subsides and it's still shut down. So there's a lot of people that pull up there when the gate's shut and they think it's open. So it'd be an opportunity for that, for grand opening events, et cetera. So it'd be really business related for seasonal open close times, but also special events.
So obviously the city cannot control the content on the sign. will the applicant not put things like political signage and things like that on there? Is it aimed at specifically for the
Yes,
business,
this is
addressing
business.
business?
This is business related. I think just like the other ones in town, it'll be a business related sign and messaging.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant? Thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody who'd like to speak for or against the proposed application? I see both guys pointing at each other, so we'll take you both.
I'm going to defer to my elder statesman.
Okay. We have 1A and 1B coming up, so take your time. Don't get... And then if we could get your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Donald Cameron, and I live at 108 Trinity Court in Coppell. I'm well aware of the property next door. I was the president of a homeowner association in the beginning, and I dealt with the old couple that sold bait. In fact, often helped the old lady on this project or that project for them. They were nice people. I have now lived with the kayak situation since then. And I'd like to talk about my feelings about it. I lived in another place and had a business in downtown Dallas. So we searched the entire area for something that was convenient to my warehouse in downtown and a nice neighborhood. And we found it here in Coppell. We're very pleased with Coppell. You know, and we looked, my wife and I took a drive, and we looked today at the monument signs that are all through the main streets. And some of them are very beautiful. Most of them are just about 5 feet high at most. They reflect the business name and not for advertising. So if you're out driving around and you want to find this place, there's the sign right out by the curb. No problem. Don't even need a street address. So my question is, why should we now go into a sign that's almost 6 feet tall and almost 8 feet wide? And it's on top of a base, a brick base, I think. Why do we need to change the coding, the code in your city to devaluate the standards? There's no need for that. I live in Coppell. It's a Class Act city, and the physical appearance and the quality of life is wonderful. And I have lived all over this country. I like Coppell. Why would we allow a deviation of standards of a business that just caters to the city here and the people coming in see that sign basically at 40 miles an hour. And if they wanted to say they were open, a small sign would do fine, open or closed, just like motels and hotels do all over this country. They don't need a 6x9 sign to say they're open. They put a sign there. So there's no reason to go into what you're doing. And why do we have to have a monument sign that's really an advertising sign? You're going to light it up day and night, I guess. You're going to be able to change the font on the thing. And there are better ways to advertise a business. I've run 2 large businesses in my life. A sign on a building didn't help. All they did is say, here you are. There's other kinds of media that he should be using to do his advertising. And it's a sign that's high, it's wide, and it's interesting because what you have here is not all the presentation. I was lucky, I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to come down here tonight. So I talked to the city, and the gentleman I talked to was very kind, and he gave me all the procedure, all the paperwork. I pulled it up on the computer, and that paperwork is more than just a monument sign. The paperwork talks about a sign on the roof of one of the buildings and other signage. So at this meeting, I think there's a lot more that should be discussed than just that one sign. In my opinion, it shouldn't happen. And once again, this is a great city to live in. I've lived all over the country. And why do you want just one person who runs this business and some others to devaluate and change your code? I frankly think it's silly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Yes, sir. We'll wait.
Christopher Howard, 104 Coppell, or 104 Trinity Court, Coppell. I had a couple of questions which I think would be interactive. There's some utilities in the front right there, the gas, the water, and electric. Is the sign going to clear all those?
If you could address the commission.
Oh,
Yeah, that's fine.
I didn't know. Has the Planning Commission looked to make sure that the sign's placement is going to clear the existing utilities and there's going to be no disruption of service or movement of the utilities? Is the sign set far enough back from the street to not be a safety hazard to traffic and passersby? And actually, the one thing that was mentioned was the status of them being open or closed. I kind of support that because where he's at, speed limit's 40, you're coming up on a bridge, there's nowhere to turn left, there's a divider on the bridge. So them being able to say that they're open or closed because of seasonal flooding or whatever seems like a good thing from a safety standpoint. I'm just concerned that, you know, how far the sign's going to stick out. I work for an insurance company. I'm the in-house on the street. We have that wall, and, you know, I'm always worried about somebody crashing that wall and then coming through to my house. I just don't want somebody to crash into the sign and cause disruption to the utilities. So as long as the commission's looked at the utilities that are there, the placement of the sign to make sure there's no interference or anything like that, I don't have a problem with it. Just want to make sure that it's safe, you know, for people passing by. He has a business. He needs to advertise his business. He needs to make money. This is kind of a do what you want state. I mean, I became a licensed general contractor 3 months after moving here because I have a shed in my backyard that wasn't permitted. I couldn't homestead my house. I wasn't in the right time frame, so I had to become a licensed general contractor so that I could pull a permit, get it signed off, and have my shed in my backyard. I understand, you know, this state gives its residents a lot more freedom to express themselves and do what they want. So as long as, from a safety aspect, you guys have ruled all that out, I think it's fair to let him do what he wants to do. My neighbor's not going to want to ride home with me tonight.
It might be a quiet ride home.
It won't. We have spirited debates all the time.
Would that be a he shed in the back?
It's just tools and stuff.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else that'd like to speak for or against the proposed application? Okay. Before I close the public hearing, is there anything the applicant would like to add? Okay.
Appreciate the feedback on this, just utility. So this is outside the right-of-way. This will be on the property. There's no easements on the survey, so when we go through, it's in the same location we originally intended, but when we go through construction, go through the normal dig test, make sure there's nothing out there, but there's no, on the survey, there's no easements. What we did on the sign size was really, we looked at, the original sign was 30 square feet. What we're looking at is a 32 square foot sign on a 1 foot 8 inch base. Really the base is to elevate this up if you drive through. I don't know if there's a way to do street view on this, but when you're driving through, there's kind of a low spot there. So the idea is we either raise it with fill or we raise it on a platform. So that's what we're looking at, is really the similar size of sign on an elevated base. So that's where that 1 foot 8 inch was really trying to get it lifted up. If you're trying, so that was the reason for the taller structure. If that's a concern, we could alternatively look at putting some shrubs or something in the front just to buffer that stonework or brickwork on the 1 foot 8 inch. But that was the real reason, was just to lift the sign up out of that low spot. With it being changeable letters, it was a little bit more about horizontal versus vertical letters. That's why we flipped it to more of of a horizontal sign versus the original one was taller. And so that was the background on the dimensions. And so that was really kind of the reason on the size. So any other?
Yeah, so I do have a question regarding the lighting of the sign. What would be the time of operation where the sign is lit, externally lit? Is it from 7 a.m. to 8 or something?
Yeah, I think it'd be reasonable to do it just the business hours. I'd have to check with Jeff. Something with 8 to 8 or what have you. Probably within an hour of business hours, I think would be appropriate.
Okay. I'm just thinking about any kind of residual glare or lighting or anything. Okay. Any questions of the applicant while he's there?
I just had one more, just for the other citizen that spoke. Just, can you provide some clarity on that, the second sign and why it's not being discussed today?
So what we have in our PD is a signage plan. We're amending the signage plan, so the only amendment is this one sign. I think Matt might have the exhibit, the overall signage exhibit. I have a copy if you want to see it. But the signage plan in the PD is staying the same. We're just modifying the monument portion of the signage plan.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fred.
Hey, I just have
Jim?
one more question.
You
Yeah,
bet.
so are the letters going to be covered with a plastic barrier like this example sign?
Yeah, usually some of them, the final design, some of them have a plastic case that they encase, and some of them, the letters you buy are like an acrylic. Just depends on what the final, we don't have a model spec yet for the piece if they have the protective case or you do the vinyl or the acrylic letters.
So,
but both are options.
As far as the exterior lighting goes, though, I mean, it seems like if you had that plastic on top, it's just going to reflect the light off of that.
Yeah, you're correct. The glare. That's why this one, the image here is an internally lit one. That's why that case is probably, we're going to do it externally lit, so probably the acrylic would be the best option.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you much. Anybody else like to speak from the public? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. So Matt, I'll just kind of follow up. I heard the applicant mention it, but just want to confirm that the difference, any differences from the previous this monument sign, it sounds like it's only 2 square feet, just the base is up a little bit because of the drainage. That's the only key difference. Size-wise, it's about the same except 2 square feet.
Well, yeah, so technically, the way we measure monument signs is from the grade level to the tip top of the sign and from the complete width of the sign. So we would measure the base, include the base on it. So it's 5 foot, 8 inches tall by 9 feet wide. But, in all practicality, like what Aaron was saying was, they're putting it on a base is basically what they're doing. And it's a 4 foot by 8 foot sign. 4 times 8 is 32, and so this is a 30 square foot sign. So that's kind of what he was getting at there. They're trying to elevate it out of that depression. So what they could do is put it on a berm, but then they change the drainage.
Yeah.
So I think this is probably the best way to get it up where they want to get it. And quite frankly, the base is a good brick or stone veneer. We do require a base on all monument signs.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. Any questions of staff? Any other discussion by the commission? Okay. Thank you to the applicant. I do like the idea about controlling the timing of the lighting an hour before or after general operations, just to reduce any potential issues with light and glare. I like the idea of shrubs around the thing. I'm not going to make it a condition of the approval, but if the applicant would consider those things as part of the implementation of that sign. Any other discussion? Sue.
My concern is, I see why you need to have an open and closed sign, but my concern is the messaging, because the city can't regulate the content, and it is an individual living there. even though it's joint with his business, we can't regulate that content. But, you know, I struggle with that a lot because any other individual would not be able to have any sign in their property, let alone a sign that they could message whatever content is applicable, or whatever content they feel like, if they're mad at the city, if they're, you know, struggling with their neighbors, if they're, so I really struggle with that a little bit. You know, the churches and the schools, I'm a little bit more comfortable with that, but on an individual basis, given, you know, any day you could, whatever your mood may strike, you could put whatever messaging. So I'm struggling here.
Yeah.
With allowing this or not allowing this. You know, I understand the need for an open and closed sign, but I don't know if any other alternatives were looked at to convey some of that messaging of whether you're open or closed, or, you know, open March 28th after the rains have gone through. But I'm struggling with being able to approve this because it is an individual living at that home.
There was a comment about potential, not necessarily vandalism, but kids altering signs with existing letters to change it to something else. And the way that would be addressed if open March 24th turned into something negative, I don't know what it could be, but there could be. It would be, the police would have to come out and ask them to fix it, or what's the process there, Matt?
Definitely, that would be a vandalism case, so it would get turned into a PD.
Okay. And I guess if it was a continuous issue, and what happens if constantly things are happening and
Stakeout. No, I'm not absolutely sure. You know, if it continues to happen, I'm sure the applicant lives there. Probably security cameras would be my guess, but that's what I would do if I lived there. But in terms of the city, we would turn it over to our police department and see what they wanted to do. I'm not sure their procedures.
Yeah. So if it's not in case letters, there's no way. Kids will be kids. I'll let the applicant come back up there.
I think, one, there's no way to regulate it. I think there's other signs in town, other businesses in town that have these signs, and so I don't think there's been a problem before. I mean, Jeff has cameras out there. There's going to be, you have eyes on it, so it's going to be a little bit different. If there was a legal way to do it, you know, but I know that's the issue. But I think there's prior successes in town with these types of signs on businesses being not a nuisance, and so I think this would be another case. So that's really all we can offer is assurance that, you know, we're not the first one, but we're going to follow through just like the other businesses that have.
Thank you. Well, given that the operation received Business of the Year, Small Business of the Year, I got to believe that there won't be inflammatory signage proposed by the business owner. So, but I want to follow up with Matt on the utilities. Are we clear on the location? There's no issue with existing utilities?
Yeah, in terms of what we saw on their plans, what was previously approved, there weren't any issues. Like Aaron had mentioned, no utility easements, but they will be required to call in the utility locates before they do a foundation.
Yep. And then I do support the comment there from the public about the open and close, how it would enhance safety, people realizing it's not open, it's closed, or it'll open later. So maybe it might reduce some of that U-turn traffic or traffic that stops in the driveway there. So. All right. Any other thoughts by the commission? All right. Any final deliberation, or is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I will move that in connection with PD 260R3-R Plan Development 260 Revision 3 Retail, change to PD 260R4-R Plan Development 260 Revision 4 Retail, that the proposed change in signage be approved, subject to the staff conditions.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Portman. Is there a second?
I second.
We have a second by Commissioner Guerra. Ashley, would you call the roll, please?
All in favor? Walker, Bishop, Maurer, Haas, Portman, Guerra. Opposed? Blankenship. The motion carries.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Thank you to the public for coming out and comments. Thank you to the applicant for working with staff. Okay. All righty. Item 10 this evening, this is a continuation of a public hearing to approve Section 12-29-1 and 12-29-4, that being a sign ordinance text amendment to allow to amend the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 12, Article 29, that being the sign regulations, Section 12-29-1 definitions, 12-29-4 provisions for business zoning districts, to define and allow for pylon signage adjacent to State Highway 21 and Interstate Highway 635, and to allow public and private schools to use changeable letters on their monument signs and provide for regulations and definitions, and to change gasoline to fuel. We have a staff presentation or a continuation of our discussion by Matt Steer. Matt?
This is item number 10 this evening. It is a public hearing, and staff did bring the similar request before the Planning Commission on December 16th, and at that time, defining and allowing seasonal businesses to have changeable letters on monument signs was part of the request. Per the request of the Commission, that part has been excluded, and it was brought forward with the previous case. Additional regulations for the pylon signage and minor verbiage change using fuel in place of gasoline where it references prices on monument signs have been included. And I'll go through the complete proposal with you this evening. A little history. The last revisions sign section of the zoning ordinance were done in 2014. The changes were some of several amendments to the zoning ordinance for small business assistance, and these consisted of reducing the front yard setback requirement of monument signs by moving them from 15-foot required setback to 10-foot required setback where you have a parking lot. It also consisted of increasing the allowable area of attached signage, building signage where you have multiple street frontages. Also allowed for businesses that were offset from the road by 300 feet or more to have an increase in attached signage by 10%, and also allowed for blade signage of 10 square feet in addition to any other allowable signage. So we have done sign amendments over the years, and I've been actively involved in the majority of them. So first, let's go through the revisions to the monument sign section, and then we'll address the pylon sign section. Proposed revisions to the monument sign section, we're proposing to add public and private schools as uses allowed to have non-electronic changeable letters in addition to those uses such as religious institutions, governmental organizations already allowed. And we've removed seasonal businesses and added fuel in the place of gasoline in this definition, this area of the ordinance. So the city made an agreement with the school district several years ago, and it's been policy ever since to allow these types of changeable letters for their middle schools and other schools throughout the city. This amendment will formalize this use and allow the schools to continue to use signage to inform parents of certain events such as the first day of school, when spring break's going to be, PTA meeting dates, birthdays, etc. So that concludes the monument sign section, and now we're moving to the pylon sign section. So the definition of pylon sign means a freestanding sign supported by two vertical pole supports encased in brick, stone, and materials architecturally compatible with the main building or structure on the property. So we put together a comparison of surrounding cities. Per the discussion at the Planning and Zoning Commission, we've also included the following revisions to the proposal. First, we're sensitive to the residential areas. We prohibit pylon signage within 200 feet from residential properties. We've put in there to require a visibility study for signage that's within 300 feet from residentially zoned properties. Set a minimum and maximum setbacks from the right-of-way. Set the minimum text size as 12 inches in height with a letter height with a minimum 8-inch clear space around the words, and then included lighting and design standards per the discussion at the Planning and Zoning Commission. So let's take a look at the text amendments. I know this is a lot of verbiage, but it is text amendment. So what I've done is put the changes since the previous proposal in a bold, italic, underlined. So highway commercial is the district where these pylon signs would be permitted. They're required to be within a conceptual plan development. The maximum size is 800 square feet, and that's per elevation. Their maximum height is 40 feet. Minimum setbacks from the right-of-way, 15 feet from the street right-of-way, and that's measured to the closest point of the sign. 75 feet from the interior property lines, and then 200 feet from residentially zoned property. The sign shall be located within 50 feet from the street right-of-way, and that's measured from the farthest point, and that's to keep them up close to the right-of-way. Signs located within 300 feet from residential districts shall observe the following two criteria. They shall submit a visibility study showing that it's not directly visible from a residence, so we can get them to adjust the sign to where it's not visible, and then may not be illuminated between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. They shall be architecturally compatible with the main building or structures within the development, and that's part of a PD request. We can look at the materials and make sure that they are compatible. If reasonably possible, the illuminations shall be from the top downward. So that's, I said, if possible. I ran it by the city attorney. He said put reasonably possible, because there could be an instance where we would allow for backlit or halo illuminated signage, but we're trying to get where they're downlit. So if they don't have the cap on the top and they have an architectural design that wouldn't have a cap, then they'd have to illuminate it somehow. The illumination source shall be shielded from the adjacent properties. No light from the sign shall be above 0.25 foot candles at the adjacent property where residentially zoned. That's taken directly from the glare and lighting standards of the zoning ordinance. Text size shall be no less than 12 inches in height, and the verbiage shall be contrasting in color from the background. It's where we're picking and choosing from other cities' regulations. That made a lot of sense, because you want it clear, you want it visible, and then the clear space around the signs shall be 8 inches. Pylon signs shall be allowed to only include tenant names within the overall development, including those considered off-premise. So if you have a conceptual plan development, you do have multiple lots, and some might be off from the interstate or State Highway 121. So you could include those tenant names. It's off-premise signage is specifically prohibited within our sign section of the zoning ordinance. So that's why we specifically called it out here. And then no temporary signs may be affixed to the pylon sign. So we just got rid of our moratorium, I guess, on enforcement of temporary signage. And so we don't want banners and things all floating in the wind and attached to these pylon signs, so we specifically prohibited it here. We grabbed 2 examples of pylon signs that were previously approved here in the city and put those in as good examples. So hopefully we can get something similar in other locations. And let me go through some of the locations where we might see some of the signs or have already seen some of the signs. So as I did in December, there's the Point West project that has a pylon sign with multiple tenant names. And then there's a property that's directly west of Point West. And this is one that we're trying to get developed as a highway commercial district. And we do expect for a conceptual PD to be submitted on this in the near future. We have calls virtually every week on this particular property asking what they can do. So this will allow existing retail an avenue to attract highway business by increasing the visibility there. And here's a screen or a street view of that property. Then we go up to the Whitestone property that we just approved 2 hotels on this site. And this was actually, it looks very familiar. It's the example we used in the ordinance. And then here's the 4 Points by Sheraton site. It's called the Westgate Development. It's on the southeast corner of State Highway 121 in Freeport. So it's got the QT, 4 Points, and then it's got retail and office development proposed. And here's the view from 121, the frontage road there. Here's the North Gateway Plaza development, which consists of Rosas, Hat Creek, LA Fitness. This is the northwest corner of State Highway 121 at Denton Tap. Then the northeast corner, which has Market Street, Whataburger, and retail center towards the back. Then we've got the Magnolia Office Park on the southwest corner of Denton Tap and 121. And then the Vista Point office development at 121 in MacArthur. So this is a lot of changes to the previous proposal, but they were all at the direction you had given in December. We are recommending approval of amending the sign ordinance to include, number 1, changeable letters on monument signs for public and private schools, and then pylon signage on highway frontage for conceptual plan developments in the highway commercial district. And I'll open it up for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. As you were going through the presentation, I jotted down a few questions that hopefully you can try to answer. Number 1, with regards to the pylon signs, the background, is there some guidance on or how do we control the color of the background, i.e. earth color tones versus neon yellow or orange, something crazy? Do we have some control there?
Absolutely. We can put something in there that says earth tones or neutral colors.
Okay.
That's a very good suggestion.
Because I saw one of the images there, and there was generally a white brick, and then we had another that had red brick. But then I started to think, well, what if an innovative approach to signage with neon whatever, who knows what, but the ability at least to control that. With regards to the reasonable and lighting, the down lighting, what would be the criteria for like halo lighting, things like that? I guess reasonable is kind of open.
It is.
Is there a way to
It is.
rein that in a little bit?
I didn't want to limit it because someone might have an innovative concept that we hadn't seen. We have seen halo illuminated signs. We do want them downlit because of the dark sky. We want to keep because of that kind of idea, keeping the skies dark. But we wouldn't want just backlit regular lighting on these signs. We wanted to stand out.
Okay.
Right, so we don't want them to look like regular channel letters on a sign. So a good suggestion. I don't know how to, pin it down even further.
And then what about like strobing effect of backlit lights? Or do we have controls on that?
We should probably put something in there that it should be constant light or continuous light, no strobing.
Something that there's no laser beams coming out of this thing or something, who knows what. All right, with regards to item X, only tenant names within the development. So does that include copyrighted logos, or it's strictly the name?
Oh, understood. Yeah. So the intent was to get the tenants within the
just the conceptual development. So it was not to restrict logos. So we could add in logos, but that would actually promote people from putting their logos out here. The first thing we'd want to see is just something uniform. But if they pressed us on it, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, they presented some logo that was registered, we would have to approve it as a tenant name. So
if if someone says my formal name is a logo versus a name, like the Prince, and remember the logo for Prince, it's just
Right.
logo versus. So if they say, well, my name is the logo, to avoid the sign being all crowded with logo and name and whatever, we have some control over the spacing you had mentioned in pre-session.
Yeah.
Spacing, so it doesn't feel crowded and things like that.
So yeah, what we've written in there, which it can be tweaked, we've written 12-inch high and then 8-inch clear space around it.
Okay. I'm just thinking,
I'm
what
open.
happens if we have a logo? You have a clear left justification, but someone has a logo that's tenant number 4, and you got logo, and I don't know, does tenant name 3 and 5 scoot in just to, I don't know, just so you don't have a mess up there.
Absolutely, and we struggled with that because the Point West, this was the original Point West sign that was approved, and the one that actually got built was a little bit different because they did have their registered trademarks. And so the only method I could see how to address that was regulate the height, make sure they're clear and legible, and then regulate the clear space. I don't know if you can specifically say no logos.
Well, I'm just thinking of Pandora's box here. What
Right.
happens if, what could be on the pylon sign?
Right, these could all be logos. That's
Okay. And then, as you were talking about the property that was west of Point West, the vacant tract, it was more of a curiosity question. That's been, I don't know if it's the owner just withholding sale of that property till the time is right. Has there ever been an issue, has that site perhaps not sold because of signage being an issue and identification or anything like that?
not to my knowledge.
Gotcha.
It hasn't been brought up.
Okay.
I think they're actively marketing the site now.
I'll acquiesce to the rest of the commission for any questions of staff. All right, Freddie?
Matt, I just had one quick question. I guess in regards to when businesses leave that center, is there a stipulation requirement for the owner to change the name out? Because I know traveling to other cities, you'll see these signs up and you'll still see the name of the business and they no longer exist in that center.
I think that's a great idea, and we should probably include that. Give them a time to get the sign, the tenant name down.
Any other questions of staff? Hey, Jim?
Okay, so Matt, on the two that were on 121 by, the last one was by MacArthur, and then the other one was right before that. After that. Okay, right there. So clearly that giant concrete barrier is obscuring the view of the businesses, and there was a requirement that the pylon sign had to be at least 15 feet from
the property, from the right-of-way line.
So would that 15 feet start at that concrete barrier?
No.
No, so if you look, let me show you here.
Because I would think if you
So-
can't even see the businesses from the street, that's probably a pretty good candidate for a pylon sign.
Absolutely. So where you're looking is where this this street view is taken. Is from the elevated section up here. It's not
Okay.
from the frontage road, but yeah.
Oh, I got you.
So their right of way would be up towards the road here, beyond this sidewalk here. So I imagine this is their right of way in between the sidewalk and the yellow. So it would need to be setback here, possibly, maybe, I don't know. I haven't designed it for them, but.
Right. And then, just looking at that picture right there, so where would you think that, in terms of doing the visibility study?
So they would have to do a visibility study because this would be within the 300 feet. So they would have to prove it up to us.
Okay. And then likewise, going to the next slide. Yeah, that one. So would their 15 feet start in that landscaping on the other side of the sidewalk, or?
Well, so again, this is taken from the elevated section. So this is
Yes, sir.
down here.
Yeah.
I think there's the frontage road. You just can't see it.
Okay.
So.
But it would be like, it would
So-
be down there somewhere.
So yeah, it would be. You can see here's a text dot sign, so it'd be back in here. They
Okay.
need to locate it back in here.
Okay.
15 feet from the minimum setback is 15 foot from the right-of-way, I believe.
And so,
So this is probably their right-of-way line right in here. So back in here.
so when they're, like the one that we just looked at, when you tell them that you need to do a visibility study, I mean, how do they know precisely what would constitute an adequate visibility study?
Well, so they would go out to the site, take pictures, do some view corridor studies, and show what is going to be visible from this residential neighborhood back here, as well as these residents up here. So they would show.
I mean, do we publish what, like the requirements for a suitable visibility study, or is this just something that everyone knows?
We would tell them to hire an engineer and to do a visibility
And then
study, and the
those
engineer
guys
would know.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
The picture you just had up that showed that you referenced the text dot sign, the other one, I guess closer to MacArthur, right there. So our sign, the pylon height would be 40 feet max, end of story, right?
Correct.
All right, so, and I see the beautification along 121 to kind of be used to screen noise or kind of shield. Is there the possibility that, let's just say that turns into something else with the bushes and shrubs right adjacent to the road, that, you can't see signage, that they're asking for something higher, it'd be, no, the height is 40 feet max, no ifs, ands, or buts, correct?
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
if they pushed us on it, we would say, okay, we'll bring you through the plan development process. You can ask the Planning Commission, City Council for a exception to that. But yeah, I mean that's why we're putting standards in the ordinance.
Yeah.
So we don't put standards so that they can ask the exception. We put them there because they're logical.
And then I guess my final question, with regards to some of the images you've shown, the tenant signs, ideal signs, they've all had letters. I was asking about logos. Could we just say letters only on pylon signs? Or is that too onerous?
We could try. We could say shall be a certain font and size, and then that way. That's what we did on multi-tenant signs. But if you see throughout town, they've kind of evolved over the years to include little logos on their So originally, when we brought the multi-tenant monument sign to you guys, it was 6-inch minimum or max, or 6-inch minimum letter size, and all the tenant names need to be the same. But over the years, it's just kind of evolved, and now we've got logos with tenant names, and I think we're moving in the direction of allowing logos for business identification. But if you guys, as a commission, want to recommend a certain font and size, we can bring that forward to the council.
I'm just thinking about what, in the past, signage has been a big issue within Coppell. and, you know, the old billboards, just a lot of stuff on there. You know, now we're identifying pylon signs that are aimed to be attractive, to call out the business, the names there. I would just hate to see logos, fonts, different styles of fonts, you know, just, it turns into a mess. And we're trying to create an opportunity for businesses to call themselves out with in these special areas. So I don't know.
Yeah, and one way you could do that, which I was looking at as well, is specify panel size and have all the panels matching, and then they can put their logos in, you know, a certain color on a dark panel. So that might be an opportunity to keep the uniformity there and still allow for some logo and some uniqueness in terms of the business name.
Thoughts by the commission? I don't, you know, I don't want to.
Matt, isn't there a picture of that Point West with logos on it?
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think the irony is that the logos are far less readable.
It's harder to see.
Right, could
Yeah.
you put it back to so we can just kind of look at it and see what type of uniformity it has? I just don't recall.
That because of the shadows you have.
Yeah, and I believe these are internally illuminated where they shine outwards, like regular channel letters, like attached signage.
Well, like I said, I'm not trying to make it onerous for signage, just so that we avoid an unintended consequence is what I'm after, really.
Right,
Aesthetically,
this
that's
is
all.
kind of aesthetically what you're probably going to get if you can just regulate the font sizes, not necessarily the font type or the logos.
I mean, I think all the work you've done is great work. I think we're really close. It's just a couple of those things, background colors, you know, regulation, backlighting, halo lighting, how do we control some of that? Maybe logo, font size, how do we control the composition of, the ultimate composition of the sign? Those are the only things, but for me, there's not enough openness to say, no, I don't think we should move forward. I think we should move forward. Maybe just some tightening up of some of these areas, that's all for me.
For sure.
And there, like Panera Bread, I mean, why is it so far over to the left? It's not even centered, you
Well,
know?
so that's what I'm not after homogeneous signs. I like color and all that, but just so that it just doesn't look like it's just thrown up there after. Yeah.
I did have one other question too. I guess in regards to the established businesses, do you see them asking to or wanting to do this, or because I know you showed the one with Firestone and others just off of MacArthur. It just seems like it's nice now, but if we had that pylon sign, just again add a little more clutter to that intersection. But it's just the way it is. It's nice. But do you expect businesses that already have established signage to come and want to do this, or?
I do. You know, I'm the one who administers the sign permits, and so every new sign permit comes through, and I'll look at, measure, and we have had, complaints from various shopping centers. Hey, my signage you can't see it, and I'm not talking about just that particular shopping center, but in general. People want signage and they want it visible. And in that particular center, that signage is set back from the right-of-way to where it's really it's not ideal, right? But it does look nice, when you do see it. It's nice. It does. It's the same building materials. It's the white stone. But yeah, I see where you guys are going. You want it to look nice, and how do we do that with and yet give the businesses some identification capabilities? Yeah, it's something we can try and tighten up. I do see potentially panels as an option to tighten up some of that with a dark panel with white, or because then it becomes more legible. So, and I do like your idea about earth tones and neutral colors, so we're not going to get something completely off the wall.
Ed?
But we do have, it needs to match the same architectural style and building materials as the structures within the development. So I don't think you're going to get the orange and.
So Matt, if this, so for example, vacant piece of property, so if they were coming in for a PD, like we would have to approve their monument sign or approve the pylon sign. So in the case of existing businesses, is it possible, since there's not that many, is it possible to have those, if they want to add them, to come through planning and zoning to look at each one versus having, changing the code broadly, or is that ultimately too restrictive?
Well, so because it is conceptual PD, what we have in here, they will have to come through the planning department and potentially planning and zoning commission, city council. So there is a provision of the ordinance that does allow for the director of community development to administratively sign off on a minor change. And if the minor change is in compliance with the ordinance, I could see that being signed off on administratively if it was, compliant with our examples that we were giving. If, say, there was something completely off the wall, then the planning director would have the right to say, no, I'm not signing off on it. I'll bring it through the process because this doesn't look like what we were envisioning for signage. So that's kind of the way it is written with this. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think each of these areas are a little bit unique, and it would be nice to have some consistency, but not have the consistency be so restrictive that it's illegible or difficult to read or just too homogeneous. And so, yeah, I'm certainly I think with where the city is with logos, there's a lot more logos, there's a lot more color. It's hard to go backwards at excuse me, at this point, enforce something that's like overly prescriptive. But I think depending on like some of the existing developments, depending on where the pylon sign is and how visible it is, that's I have a bit of a concern with that. To one, if you'll be able to, I think that was a good example of one of the photographs that you showed, that will you be able to see the pylon sign, and if you're coming down 121 at whatever rate of speed, will it be legible? Will you see it? Is it safe to see? And some, depending on how the highway curves, at some points being at the 50-foot setback may not be the ideal place. I think we had talked about this when we looked at this. So I think ultimately having some, I like the idea of having some of the some consistency across the board, maybe potentially in form as well, so that it regulates. So this is a good example of we want a pylon sign that looks like that, and then the hotel example to have that to be separate. You still have the same type of elements, but maybe the same a bit type of form. So as you drive, especially on the highway, they look generally the same in terms of just the form, and then having I like the idea of having some set of panels, so at least where you probably would have less chance of somebody being left justified versus centered. So those are my thoughts on it.
Other questions, comments? Freddie?
I actually agree with that. I think if there was a standard for the form or configuration, that way it kind of demarks the boundaries of the city. But again, I think that consistency, I think that's my biggest concern, is just all the signs looking different. And I think it'd be nice, again, if they sort of look the same. I don't know if that's possible or not, but.
Matt, what kind of timeline are we on? I know we've continued the discussion. Now I'm going to ask the commission if we need to continue it some more, or is there?
There is no
Okay.
no pressing timeline. This was staff initiated. We knew, you know, we've got several requests in for pylon signage, and so it was just time to bring it forward and see if you guys wanted to just amend the ordinance because you were approving these with the plan developments.
And process-wise, going forward, let's say it passes muster tonight with the P&Z or after another discussion or whatever, is it straight to council and that's it, or is there workshops with council?
So there would be a workshop in March at City Council to present the idea to them and let them discuss it. You know, do they even want it? And then bring it to the regular session for a public hearing in April.
So was this going to be workshopped either way, whether it's past P&Z or not?
No. If we want a recommendation from P&Z to bring it to City Council. If it's denied at P&Z, we would not bring it to City Council unless they came back and told us, no, we want to see it. So,
okay.
Yeah, it hasn't been advertised for City Council or anything.
Okay. So I'd like to ask the commission, I mean, are there some things here we need to tighten up, or is it just guidance that we give to staff to then include that and keep moving forward, or do you think we need to have another discussion on some of these items here?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I think it's, you know, unless there's a burning bridge or, you know, a specific one that, you know, we need to look at, I think it's important enough to make sure that we have the general guidelines where we feel it covers most of our concerns or the concerns we can identify. So I would be in favor of tabling it and
or continuing
and giving staff time to retool a bit.
Any other thoughts by the commission on that? Or are we just beating a dead horse here?
I concur with him.
I mean, just looking at these two examples, I mean, they're very different. And I would think that the market would kind of dictate to what extent would even be effective. I mean, the example one, if you're going 70 miles an hour down 121 and you're looking, you're looking for a business, that's going to be a lot more effective to cue you up that, oh, there it is, it's over there, I've got to get an exit and get over there. The Point West one with those logos, I don't understand even the point to those. You can't even, unless we're really keened in on the Dunkin' logo, and some people in search of caffeine are, but you'd really have to know what that was. And then like the Yummy Tide and some of those other things, I just think, I don't understand how effective they would be. Like the example two to me looks like when you pull into Legacy over there, and you're just looking like it's on the ground and you're pulling in and what's nearby, you know, because you're looking for a couple of distinct stores. That makes more sense. The one example one to me is more of the 60 mile an hour one, which to me says then you want standardized font and background, everything like that, so that, you know, it either says like Hilton or it says, you know, Shields or just to cue you at high speed that, hey, that's what's over there. But I think the logos and all the color just becomes clutter. And I don't know how effective it's going to be for people to see and recognize what they're looking for anyways.
Like the Hilton, the Home 2, I mean, if they wanted that sign up there, that's, you have text and then you have Home 2. So, I don't know.
Yeah, those are logos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's no pink there for your Dunkin' Donuts, but I mean, so maybe we continue the discussion a little bit more. Let staff ponder some of the items. Matt?
Well, so this is an approved sign for Home 2 and
Sure.
You know, so they would be allowed to put a logo on their sign, but this was just an example. So,
yeah.
And I would ask for a little more direction in terms of if you want a sign similar to this with tenant names, I can go back and, you know, I mean, we can write the ordinance to, say, this is the type of sign we want to see in Coppell. Of course, I'd call the architect and say, hey, I stole your design, and is it okay, But, this does give dimensions. There's 6 foot area between each of the tenant names, and not between each, but for each of the tenant names. So I'd want some direction like that, or if we wanted to pull together a subcommittee and, look at it together and then bring something back to the commission, that would be an idea.
So like this sign here, now if you go back to the other one that had them side by side, yeah, so you have tenant, you have 4, it puts some priority by the developer. Okay, here's my top 4, my anchors or whatever. The one on the right, well, you're listening to everybody, so you're going to have your who knows what. But I kind of like the one on the left. I mean, I'm okay with variation, but something that kind of reins it in. I think Jim used a great word there, distinct. I would say if we can come up with something that makes it distinctly Coppell, and where I'm coming from is to get to this point from where we were in Coppell when I first started on this commission back in '07. Former Director Gary Sieb, he did a great job of at the time what the desire was, and that was backlit letters, black or white, not a whole lot. So we were distinct in that sense. And to come now to color and now to logos, that's like from where we were with the old world theme, and now we have all this. I still would like for there to be something that makes us it's distinct, it's something that's distinct to Coppell. It allows some variation, but we have something that it's just not wide open, I guess. I don't know. So I don't know if I've already opened up Pandora's box here, Matt, but I mean something that we what kind of guidance. I kind of like the one that's on the left. That you have honed in large areas, but I do like the ability for there to be some kind of flexibility, maybe, but something within some general parameters. But I don't know what to offer.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I'm hearing is one, some consistency on the form, but I would agree the materials, let's say, it would be good to match the, whatever development it is, but having the same kind of, it doesn't necessarily have to be this, but something that is, generally the same form, so it would look the same across, whomever does it. The neutral colors in terms of the back, the lighting, the continuous lighting versus strobe, the time to, how much time they have to renew or remove the tenant name after they exit, let's say, 30 days or whatever's appropriate. And then specifying the panel size. I know we specify the minimum size of the letter, but also specifying the panel size, or that they have to be even panels, depending on, whatever the space is. Because I think the things in terms of the lettering being legible, I think that's getting addressed with the size of the letter. And the home to is a good example. I don't know. The logo doesn't bother me as much in terms of the sign, because I think it in many cases now it makes it more legible, because you recognize the logo versus just seeing letters. But I think that hopefully that helped to summarize a bit. But I think the main concern is just sort of more of the form as we go.
Well, so what I'm hearing you say is if we had some similar to this, if we had some base to it and said everything needs to be on an L base, that's your form, and then you can build off of that, and if your panels are, as long as or your sign areas, as long as they're similar or the exact same dimension, you can have your signage within that areas, right? So that would separate the various signs. Now, these are 6 feet tall, so with our 12-inch letters, so you think 18 inches, you could probably fit 2 or 3 within one of these panels. So,
I mean, I think the important thing would be, and maybe you're already thinking of this, but in terms of the L base, that the L would start at the same height on each sign, and so that
This area.
the physical signage area would be the same. Correct. So from the ground. So if the
Right.
assumption is the pylon signs are really for, highway traffic versus local, then the space below, as you're driving on a one of the local roads, there you wouldn't have signage, directly below. But that's really not what the pylon sign would be primarily geared
Right.
toward, and would help sort of visual clutter so that you don't have 500 names on the signs. You restrict them to a certain amount of space within a window of from top to bottom, so that. But yeah, I don't know that every sign panel has to be the exact same size. I think it certainly could be, but I think keeping that same rectangular block or whatever size it is consistent across would be helpful.
Clear as mud there, Matt?
well, that's what I'm looking for is direction. So, yeah, it's not clear, and it's not going to be a clear-cut thing. But yeah, I do like the idea of, here's your here's what you're working with. This is Coppell. We have a unique identity that we've already established. If we want brick on the base, or if we want, materials, stone on the base, we can ask for that. So this is not considered a habitable structure. So we can specify building materials on this.
So I'm sure there's probably pros and cons either way to any of these topic areas. So maybe, maybe I'll mandate down that staff come up with something. We've kind of hit all around, but I don't know. You've done great work today. It's just a matter of maybe just some parameters of how we, on these pylon signs.
Okay, and I would ask that there be some subcommittee or something from the commission, so that I'm not taking a stab in the dark at it.
So staff, let's see, Mary and Mindy from staff.
So I think we also need to take a look at, these two signs. Can you go back to the?
And maybe there's others, right? Maybe there's another.
Well, if you look at the situations and where these signs are placed, the one on the left with the 4 tenants is because there's only 4 lots, versus the one on the right, Point West, there's several lots with many more tenants. So they're 2 very different situations. So, I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all for this.
I agree, because
So-
it's got each site is maybe kind of unique.
Right.
So it needs to have some flexibility, but.
So, yeah, so I think, what Matt was trying to come up with was something that would fit both types of situations, but we can take another stab at it.
I think the other thing too, if we are looking at these 2 examples, kind of make them, again, at the same time, a form of configuration. But again, you'll have 2 that fits one where you have a lot of businesses in the center, and the other one if you had limited number, but maybe consider 2.
So.
Yeah, and that's, I enjoy that, taking other architects' work and manipulating. No, I'm just kidding. But definitely, we could come up with compatible concepts for a multi-tenant center, and then a few tenant center, and just put those out as examples. And if, say, we expect their submittals to be close to that.
So subcommittee-wise, I'll be on a subcommittee. I'll join you. Do we want maybe some others that maybe aren't necessarily from the commission, like someone from economic development, or maybe some of those, I don't know.
Ashley, how many can we have from the planning commission on a subcommittee?
No more than 3.
No more than 3. So I just recommend having 3 from the planning commission.
So do I have volunteers, or am I going to volunteer? Phil?
I'll volunteer.
So we got Freddie, Eddie, we need another, and Ed. Okay.
3 total?
Are there anyone else like dying to be on this subcommittee that I could acquiesce if someone else wants to be on it? All right, Sue. No, I'm teasing. Jim?
No, it's okay.
Okay. Okay.
But I did want to say one thing, though. Like, to me, like, these signs are 2 different purposes. I mean, there's no way in the world you'd put this Point West sign over there on 121 we looked at by MacArthur, because you wouldn't even be able to see the bottom 5 or 6 guys, and you're using like a third of the sign is just decoration. So, whereas this to me is a highway sign on example 1.
I like sign 1 better. I mean, just aesthetically.
Are we really just talking about, because it's a highway district, I mean, we're really just talking about letting people that are driving by looking for a hotel or something know that that's where it's at.
Yeah, and keep in mind, these are 40-foot high. So this is not a 20-foot high monument. This is a 40-foot high sign. So this is big.
But that's why example 2 doesn't, can you imagine if that was 40 feet tall? The top third of it almost is just cornice and brick. I mean, it just doesn't seem very effective to me to accomplish what we're trying to allow people to do for what they should be trying to accomplish, I guess what I'm saying. So since I'm not going to be on the subcommittee, there's my 2 cents.
Duly noted.
All right, so we'll continue the discussion, and Matt, I guess find a time that works for us and we can get together either virtually or whatever.
For sure, yeah. Zoom always works, and if you guys want someone from another committee, or we can always bring them in.
So that's why I threw it out there, like someone from economic development, because you have more of maybe the development community or someone other thinking than not just us.
And Mindy could. I could ask her to see if she would be on the committee. We don't have a economic development committee in Coppell anymore, but
oh, that's right. Yeah.
I could ask Mindy to see if she would participate, and I'm sure Mary would participate as well. So,
Hey, Matt, one last thing. I would recommend maybe somebody from Smart Cities. Again, it's just that customer experience or human experience. Again, there may be new trends happening that they may want to consider or something. Who knows?
for sure, I'll check with Jared. He's the liaison to that committee.
The subcommittee of 3 is now a subcommittee of 30. As we keep expanding this, Jim may find his way on this committee, So. All right. So I will make a motion that we continue this discussion. We have a subcommittee of at least 3 commission members here, Freddie Guerra, Ed Marr, and myself, and then maybe plus some others, and just to kind of continue the discussion, and then. Oh, a date specific? Continue. So we'll continue.
March meeting.
What's our date in March? So March, okay, so we'll continue the discussion to March 17th. Is that spring break week?
Yes.
It's what? Okay, so we'll continue this discussion to April 21st, our Planning and Zoning Commission on the 21st. So, okay, so there's a motion by Commissioner Haas. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes, this is a public hearing. Would anyone from the public like to speak on the item? Please come up. I was wondering why you guys were hanging out, but thank you for for hanging out.
Chris Howard, 104 Trinity Court, Coppell. This is very interesting. I actually like sign 1. I'm 52. I'm a new resident to Coppell. I've lived here 2 years. And the one thing that I heard nobody mention is most people my age and younger go everywhere based on where their cell phone tells them to go or the navigation in their car. These huge signs would be great from alerting somebody driving by on a leisurely drive like maybe Dawn, where a new business is. But the average person my age and younger knows where they're going. They're going to use their cell phone to get there. And so the more uniform the sign is with current city standards would be better, because our city is a great city and you guys have done an amazing job keeping it that way. I like example 1. I work for AAA, the Automobile Club of Texas. Sign 2 is dangerous to be reading at 70 miles an hour. Sign 1's not safe, but it's not dangerous like sign 2 is. But the one thing to think about, and like you said, economic development, you know, we need to attract tax dollars to our city, but most people go where they're going because of what the internet tells them.
Yeah.
Was my only thought.
Oh, great comments.
Yes.
Sir, would you like to add anything there?
Matt, thank you for your help. It's been an interesting evening. I stayed here because I could learn something. I learned what a tough job you have. You got to get everybody happy. Very difficult. I lived in a town once that goes back to the Revolutionary War era. It was up in Rochester, New York. They had a mandate. All signs had to be similar. And it was a very pretty town. And I think you're on the right track to get some standard of sorts so that your city will stand out. You've got a pretty town, but pretty things can get bad over years. I'm old enough to know that. So I would suggest that your conversation that you're going to continue would be one to try to set a standard of some sort, and tall ones or whatever, so that the city looks the same more or less. And these signs, sitting here listening to your conversation based on signs that were up like a place marker. This was where we are. This is the name of the establishment. Had nothing to do with sales, and that's good. You're not trying to sell anything. You're just saying, here I am, in a nice uniform way. Keep it up.
Thank you very much for your thoughts, both thoughts. So we have to watch out for that AAA logo up there. I'm teasing.
Our logo's on the building. We don't have any exterior signs. We don't meet city requirements.
Thank you for your comments. Great comments, though.
You guys have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. And also to staff, thank you. Great work. As always, great work. And we'll just keep the dialogue going until our April meeting, 21st meeting. Yes, so there was a motion by Commissioner Haas. There was a second by Commissioner Blankenship. And so, Ashley, would you call the roll, please?
Goodness. In favor. Goodness. Walker, Bishop, Mauer, Haas, Portman, Guerra, Blankenship in favor. None opposed. The motion carries.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Item 11 on the agenda, update on council actions. Mary?
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report. Okay, very good. Item 12 then is adjournment. So with that, it is 8:27, and I will adjourn our meeting.